The winners were able to take the podium after today's women's free skate event after all, since gold medal favorite Kamila Valieva, who tested positive for a banned heart medication but was still allowed to compete while an investigation plays out, gave an uncharacteristically sloppy performance and came in fourth. Her team, which competes as part of the Russian Olympic Committee because the country itself is still suspended over past doping scandals, still dominated the event, claiming both the gold and silver. Now, the medal ceremony for the team figure skating event still on hold pending the investigation because Valieva helped the ROC take gold over the U.S. But some of the focus on Valieva, who's just 15 years old, has shifted to another Russian figure skating icon, her coach, Eteri Tutberidze. Her athletes have all dominated the sport for the past several years, but now some are beginning to question whether her tactics are not just effective, but also abusive. Among those making that claim is writer and longtime figure skating fan Rita Wang, who argues in a new Slate piece that Tutberidze has helped create a culture of child abuse within the sport. She joins me now, along with retired Olympic figure skater and two-time national silver medalist, Polina Edmunds. Welcome to both of you. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
I want to start by throwing Rita, just taking a look at part of a pullout from your piece in the magazine, just pointing out what some of the allegations here are, that her methods are no secret. The Eteri girls, who are usually the folks who are being coached, the girls being coached by her, talk openly about not being able to drink water during competitions. They do their best to delay puberty by eating only powdered nutrients or by taking Lupron, which is a puberty blocker known to induce menopause. They are subjected to daily public weigh-ins and verbal and physical abuse, and they compete while injured, huffing smelling salts while wearing knee braces and collapsing in pain after programs. This has basically, Rita, been an open secret for quite a few years now about this coaching approach, right?
Yes, essentially, figure skating fans have long known about Eteri's methods. Every few weeks, it seems like a new interview comes out with her saying more and more egregious things, like the things I mentioned in my article.
And Polina, just to point out, from your perspective, I mean, just over the past decade, the age of the skaters competing has dropped, and the ceiling to how old you can be to continue to be a competitive skater and enjoy the sport. How has that changed in your experience over the past decade?
You know, it's crazy because 8 years ago, I was the 15-year-old competing at the Olympics, and I was only one of two. My counterpart was a Russian 15-year-old. And at that time, no matter how advanced technically I was, which in Sochi, I did have the hardest technical content of every woman there, I still finished in 9th place. And this is because the judging prioritized the second mark as well as the technical equally. And of course, competing against women many years older than I, they could bring maturity and a full package of skating that they didn't quite see with me. And that is completely flip-flopped in the last 4 to 5 years. And now every single champion and every girl that's getting all the medals is young, is a minor under the age of 18. You know, the gold medal favorite was 15. You know, the girls right now winning 16, 17. The way that the judging system has now prioritized technical has resulted in this quad fiasco of young girls before the age of puberty who are just filling their programs with quadruple jumps and not trying for components and for skating skills. It's become a jumping contest. And unfortunately, we've seen now with this case in Beijing that it's now a competition of chemistry rather than natural abilities. And if we're not,
Yeah, I was just going to say, I know we all agree that we should point out that Valieva is 15 years old and that the adults around her are the ones that are responsible for whatever is or isn't happening with her, and they are still doing an investigation to find out about the past use, and that story is developing even as we are talking. Bree, can you talk about this quad? I know that we'll all become experts every 4 years when we watch the Olympics about whatever sport we love, and the development of the quad move in women's skating, when the men's skating is just only for a few years been able to accomplish this, and now it's sort of a must-do. Can you talk about what the difference is for our viewers between sort of an artistic, athletic performance versus this technical quad that has to be done? Why is that so important and dominating now?
I think that, as Polina mentioned, the scoring is really interesting. Pretty much 8 years ago, we were seeing people with more experience like Yuna Kim, Carolina Kostner getting that really high PCS mark. And it's kind of flip-flopped in the past few years to really reward skaters who have quadruple jumps. So, for example, if you look at Sasha Trusova, who won the silver medal this morning in Beijing, her program doesn't really have transitions. It doesn't have a lot of things that skaters who are more deemed as artistic would have, and yet she has a really high PCS mark and has really high transition scores. And so I think that is really interesting. And it's something skating fans have been complaining about for the past few years as to why is the scoring like this? It doesn't really make sense. If scoring were fair, the scores would look a lot different and the placements would look a lot different.
Polina, the other thing we love to do is hate the Olympic Committee we love to hate them, hate to love them. We here in Boston, we're courting them to come here. Some people were thrilled they didn't come, and it just seems there's always these confusing rules about who gets punished and who doesn't. I want to show a tweet from Sha'Carri Richardson on Twitter. She wrote, obviously she had been eliminated for using a legal substance in some states. Can we get a solid answer on the difference of her situation and mine's? My mother died and I can't run and was also favored to place top 3. The only difference I see is I'm a black young lady. Others would also add to that, saying the other difference is even though Russia isn't competing as a country, the Russian athletes are competing, and somehow there always seems to be a little thumb on the scale on their side to give them a pass, allowing Valieva to compete, even though the use was in question. What's your take on how our relationship with the Olympic Committee is? And by ours, I mean those of us who love watching the Olympics and support the athletes.
Essentially, I think the bottom line here in the situation is that no athlete, regardless of age, should get a pass for something as big as doping. We all sign the same contracts, no matter what age we are. And the Olympics is the biggest sporting event in the world. This is an adult sport. And even if minors are competing, we have to be held to the same standards. And in terms of the differences between this situation and Sha'Carri's, for one, right now, this skater is denying the use of the substance and saying it had to be an accident. And so they're doing an investigation. She is a minor, so she has protected person's rights in this contract, versus, Sha'Carri is not a minor. She did admit to the usage of using something that was against the rules, regardless of whether or not it was performance enhancing. So there's definitely differences in the situation, but I do stand with the fact that Kamila should face consequences just like every other athlete, regardless of age, and she should have been suspended and not allowed to compete at this Olympics.
Rita, it seems to me we're in a bit of I would hope, a renaissance, an awakening about the toll that being an athlete in the spotlight is taking, that so many athletes have been coming forward talking about the mental health challenges, the physical health challenges. We're closely looking at the NFL in particular about the physical cost on those people performing for us, basically, on Sundays. And now we're looking at sports like primarily gymnastics and skating and a few others where children are competing. And they don't seem to be competing for the love of the sport or for the competition. They seem to be competing for something that's greater than them, that they may not have consent or the knowledge to actually give consent. Do you think we're at a turning point, and this is a worldwide question, obviously, about how we look at young athletes competing in these high-stake events?
Well, I would say I really hope we're at a turning point as someone who not only watches figure skating, but also gymnastics and all of these other sports like tennis. I have been watching these young girls pretty much process their emotions on live television, and it's been heartbreaking. And I'm really glad that with the Olympics here, we're finally able to shine the spotlight on how much abuse there is in the sport, and how much we use these young girls for entertainment, essentially. But I don't know. My worry is that with the Olympics almost a few days going to end, I'm worried that people will forget that Kamila tested positive for this drug, and that they'll go on to the next news story. So my hope is that this is another part of a conversation about changing the culture within figure skating and other sports.
And Polina, because of the international nature of it, right? This doesn't become our story in a way, and I mean in the United States, as Rita points out, once the Olympics close, we're not going to really focus on skaters again unless the nationals and if they start touring again and having the national competition. Yet this whole community of the skating community, the amateur skating organizations will be involved. Will there be any changes? Will there be any pushes to change the way the scoring happens, putting pressure on the Olympic Committee, putting pressure on others to bring the sport back from this technical athleticism that's almost impossible to maintain past, being 17 or 18?
Well, I think one of the biggest problems in our sport right now has been the dishonest judging, and it has really detracted from the excitement that skating brings and the recognition that athletes with longevity in their careers brings. We don't have skaters that we can follow anymore in their careers because we're just getting a conveyor belt of very young athletes every single year. And again, because of the way the technical has been pushed, a lot of the qualities that people love about figure skating, the beauty, the artistry, that's starting to be missing. And so I think if we're going to fix that and we're going to bring skating back to the sport that we all know and love, there needs to be serious changes in the judging system.
Rita, you've been following ice skating, figure skating your whole life. Do you still enjoy watching it? And you're writing about it. It's part of your career. Do you still enjoy watching and cheering on folks? Or is it a bit of a heartbreaking or bittersweet mixed emotions experience for you?
I would say I definitely have mixed emotions. There are some skaters whom I love, who I really admire. Like, for example, Japan's Wakabayashi Higuchi, who landed 2 triple axels in Beijing. I felt really lucky to be able to watch her skate and share that moment with her. But like Polina said, having the judges score her so low when she put out that skate made me really upset. And I do feel like there's something special about skating that I keep going back to every few years. But I really hope that there are massive changes within the sport, or else, I don't know, a lot of people like me are very unhappy with how it's going right now.
And Polina, are you still able to encourage folks to take up skates?
Absolutely. This is the sport I grew up with. I grew up watching. I went to the Olympics myself. I love figure skating, and I love what it can give to athletes who decide to give it a try and make it part of their lives. I just hope that young athletes in this country, as well as others, aren't discouraged by the Olympics that have just happened.
Well, we direct folks to Rita Wang's Slate piece. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Polina Edmunds, I appreciate you as well. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the Olympics this week.
Thank you.